What does Five Nights at Freddy's Ruin hide off camera during the opening of the game? As we enter the pizzaplex once again in the Ruin DLC, we can see that everything is in shambles and seemingly deserted. This time the game has a more linear experience. However, beyond this rubble lies quite a lot of interesting things. So we're going to head out of bounds and take a look at things you normally can't see, while also breaking the game a bit. There's a lot of bizarre things to show off, like Chica T-posing through a staircase. Glorious! So, I hope you enjoyed this game-breaking experience in Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach, the Ruin DLC. So as always, let's do a very brief recap of everything we'll be covering. You start the game as Cassie, as you climb into the literal ruins of the pizzaplex. You get yourself a flashlight as you make your way to a walkie-talkie where the voice of Gregory can be heard. An elevator almost cuts your head off, but you press on and climb into a damaged vent that eventually collapses. While making your way through the trashed room, Chica jump scares you, and then you ultimately obtain the Faz Wrench. You use your level 99 thieving to lockpick a door before making your way down a crumbling stairwell like a true urban explorer. That's when you reach a water maintenance area, and Monty climbs out of a pipe, knocking you into the water below. And then the Security Breach Ruin logo pops up onto the screen. Now in Monty Golf, you get forced to take a creepy mask, which allows you to Majora's Mask your behind Link to the Past style to a dark world. An augmented reality world that intersects with your own. Of course, no better time to try out some Monty Golf. Past this arcade, you must make your way around the ruins of Monty Golf while deactivating nodes and avoiding the furry version of the villain from Scooby-Doo and the Cyber Chase. Eventually, you come to the Daycare, where the chapter comes to a close. Okay, recap done. So let's dive in. So starting off, the newspapers blocking out the window read, "Pizzaplex destroyed. Earthquake shatters Pizzaplex, temporarily closed." And as Cassie is making her way into the Pizzaplex ruins, we can take a closer look at our lower quality model. A lot of stuff in this game, to my understanding, was processed with Insta-LOD, which is a software integration / pipeline used to generate LODs or level of detail models. So we can see Cassie up here with a lower quality appearance as she is farther away from the camera. Her face looks rigid, and her fingers look like they are from the Nintendo 64. She also has a pole piercing through her body. Before letting the intro animation play out, we can see the world beyond her is full of bright light, scaffolding, and floating trees. This part of the game lets you see a lot, but we are limited in where we can go. So flying around through the ruins of the Pizzaplex down below is honestly pretty cool. Beyond the mysterious beyond, I catch a glimpse of a faraway object, and it turns out it is the edges of a very compressed skybox, or in this case, a sky dome because it's rounded. The game has the fog and bloom out here looking a little extra, but if we stop moving, we can start to see the sky dome around this area. Cutting out some of the fog, we can get a better view of this. It's a blown out tree line with grass below it and a whitish blue sky above it. Backing the camera up a ton lets you appreciate the scale of it and the water drop-like shape. Oddly, beneath this entire map there is an object, and it is a piece of wall that is only rendered on one side. So let's head back up top now. So Cassie is now entering the scene, and her model is no longer the lower quality version due to how close our camera is. She starts off by just sliding into the opening of the broken window area. Her eyes roll to the back of her head for a moment in a totally not creepy manner. She then hops down and calls out to Gregory. As this initial animation finishes, the first-person camera arms load in on top of the model, as the rest is obscured. Something I found odd is that our left hand looks like it has the Fazbear display screen on it, but the watch is missing and the screen is static, as the Faz watch is only used in Security Breach. We can see our hand is already holding the walkie-talkie too. So the first thing I want to do is head out of bounds and explore the bottom area of this destroyed building. And I quickly realize that's going to be a problem. So this DLC puts death barriers under every single map section as a failsafe in case the player falls to the ground. So I just die when jumping down below. And this is done to prevent falling forever, but to also hide their AR world secrets, which I'll eventually cover. We can't explore outside the building though, as the scaffolding we start on can be walked on. Things look pretty strange out here though. But we can make our way down below and walk along the front doors of the building. However, going any further beyond that will kill us. Walking behind the walls of the lobby is kinda spooky though, as now everything is shrouded in darkness. And some areas don't even have collision, so we fall straight through to our death. Trying to go to the main lobby area that's blocked off causes death as well, as none of the objects have any sort of colliders active. So normally, the game prevents you from proceeding without a flashlight, but obviously we can do this with cheating. But on my first playthrough, I thought the staff-bot jump scare was a second chance at a flashlight. Turns out you can't pick up the flashlight even if you don't have one. We are also going to skip the walkie-talkie too. Just know that for the rest of the gameplay in this area, Gregory won't shut up, and I endured that for hours. We now have the elevator jump scare, which takes place while we're on the ladder. Going up top, we'll see that no elevator is present. However, that's when I discover some floating black rectangles out of bounds, and I go over to them. All of them have collision, so we can walk on them, and what you're seeing here is the unloaded area that will eventually be where Chica and Monty are at. This is just the boxing of the area that was preloaded before any other assets appeared. Back by the elevator though, we can see that as we start climbing up the ladder, the elevator will just spawn above us. Now, we are watching this in slow motion, but we can see the elevator descend along with all the textures, decals, and particle effects that are used during the crash sequence. As it reaches the bottom, we can see that it just immediately stops. We then go back to climbing up the ladder and go into the vents. So this is what the vents look like that we were climbing through. And now we can see the rest of this environment loaded in while we're climbing the ladder. We have some empty rooms with checkered floors that we'll be checking out later, but we also have some objects hidden out of bounds. There are 2 pairs of duplicate railings stored out of bounds at different locations, and here is one of them. Back in the vents though, I want to watch this crash happen in third person. In case you're curious, you can walk on top of the vents past where the crash happens, and you'll eventually just fall through the vents into the room. But let's break this thing now. We can see the vents start to collapse and fall down below, but the game does something interesting as they fall. Because the vents are part of a cutscene, they will eventually despawn when that cutscene is over. So the game instead creates a duplicate part of the vent that the cutscene vent eventually falls into and unloads. This is so that when the player turns around, they can still jump up against the vent and it has physical mass. So this trashed room normally has a startling noise that occurs before you get to Chica, and pulling the camera back reveals it's just the audio and nothing actually moves. But before triggering Pizza Corpse Gal, we're gonna swim through some trash and head out of bounds. So the first set of blocked doors lead to nowhere, but we can walk on the floor back here. And while I'm walking around out of bounds, I notice something peculiar in the distance. Way in the distance, we can find Chica T-posing with a metal staircase. Now, immediately, I'm thinking, oh, this is where they store Chica before she jump scares you. Usually models and animation assets are loaded in early and are stored out of bounds, so game performance doesn't dip, since they no longer have to load in that asset the second it is used. But here we have Chica, shouldering the weight of the staircase all by her lonesome. So I go over there to make her life even worse, as I run around and jump on this staircase. It has collision, so we can walk here. My floating pair of arms are causing Chica all sorts of dread. Now, when we move forward in this room, we do get jump scared by Chica. And the second this happens, we can see this Chica vanishes. The second we hit this trigger, Chica warps over to this spot and the animation plays out. We can watch it in all its glory in slow motion though. Chica's probably the grossest looking animatronic in the game, man. She's literally covered in cobweb cheese. The thought of that just grosses me out. So earlier I mentioned there are 2 rooms here with checkered floors that are inaccessible. And we can see them in this overhead shot right here. We can enter these rooms though and walk around. Both rooms are the same and are empty, so nothing too exciting, so let's move on. So we're going to just T-1000 our way through this door and skip the Faz Wrench for this toolless adventure we're doing. And as we walk down this staircase, we will encounter the Blob, which in the game files is now dubbed as Tangle, similar to the tentacles in the Security Breach ending. So let's take a look at this big fella before he nopes the heck out of here. So this creepy mass is just lurking in this hole, and their neck is super long. Their entire body is actually stored out of bounds, just clipping through the wall. It looks very strange. It makes me wonder what the Blob was doing too, because it isn't facing the player at this moment. So the Blob is actually triggered by both the player's position and the camera direction from what I can tell. And behind the scenes, we can see how they retract into the wall. Normally this happens super fast, but we are of course slowing this down so we can appreciate the animation put into this Funtime Freddy mask. The head then whips around and pulls up as the body for some reason starts clipping through the wall. I'm pretty sure a fast player could see the body do that if they were positioned right. The Blob then unloads. Next up we have the waterworks area, and the light jump scare isn't all too interesting, so let's take a look at the whole place. So there's several dead ends in this area, and I want to see what was actually past them. If we go beyond the first blockade we encounter, we can see there is a lower level with metal gratings. We can walk on this, but as you may have guessed, jumping to the lowest level kills us. Next up, we have the bent gate that looks like Monty climbed under, and while we can walk back here, nothing back here beyond the initial platform has collision, as I once again die. This time I have the power of God and anime on my side, and I'm able to give some collision back to this area. As you can see, there isn't a whole lot to it. It's a square section that just abruptly ends. and nearby we can see the waterway that we eventually fall into. I throw on my iron boots and go for a walk down here, and although you can't hear it, the trash and stuff does make different walking noises as we explore. Of course, once I take off my protective boots, I fall through the floor, and die, since there isn't any base collision down here. But now let's take a look at this cutscene. So while getting prepped for the cutscene, I noticed there is a box stored absurdly far above the map. It's a fragile parts and service container, so it's probably Italian. But I don't know why this is up here at all. It's insanely high above the map. There's also a section of flooring out here too. Anyways, if we look down the pipe that Monty comes out of, we won't be able to see him, and it actually is sealed with concrete at the bottom. I tried looking for Monty, but he's hidden very well on this map, and he's much easier to find once we enter Monty Golf. But the second we trigger this cutscene, Monty will spawn in the pipe and start climbing up after us. He just sort of clips to the sides of the pipe as he's coming up, but watching it in slow motion, we can see his spine never moves. It just drags through the metal pipe. Swapping the angle, we can now see our flooding flashlight, which I did not pick up, mind you. Our arms then appear, and Monty lunges at us and swipes through our hand completely. We then leap backwards into the water as Monty begins to clip through the roof. This cutscene happens so fast, so it's really nice to see things slowed down. It's not very obvious that Monty's spine is more like a scarecrow post, and I'm sure he'd be great friends with Cable Crow from Zardy's Maze. As we hit the water, Monty begins to clip through the wooden banister as his hand is raised in the air. His hand pokes through the wood, and then he eventually vanishes. Down below, we're taking swimming lessons in the sewers as we get swept away. Real talk, I spent a lot of time just watching all this trash spawn in. There's plushies, chicken wings, trash bags, faz cams, and a whole lot of weird things. A lit cupcake? Whatever, throw it in the sewer soup. Out of bounds, we can find a T-posting Chica, again, since we skipped her jump scare on this current play session, and a hunched over staff bot, who looks like he's depressed, holding Chica's legs and crying on her frozen T-posing body. And heck yeah, we finally found our boy Monty too, T-posing in the most T-pose possible. But you know what's better than one Monty? Two. Monty Golf has now loaded in, and within that set of objects, we can now find a sewer-like version of Monty just waiting to climb up an invisible pipe. Glorious! What's interesting is that even though at this point there is a big Ruin logo on the screen, the trash keeps spawning in the sewer down below. Perhaps this sewer cutscene used to be longer. And speaking of that Ruin logo, it actually is a 3D model and placed on the map. It's stored inside a black cube, as the logo does the Stranger Things zoom-in thing. If we rotate the camera around, we can see it is indeed a 3D version of the logo, and is extruded backwards to give it depth. Now, after this, we wake up at Monty Golf, and the real fun begins. So you may have already seen this online, but if not, you'll notice in this shot, there appears to be two versions of the map, one above and one below. And that's because the vanity mask we'll be getting soon actually warps us to the lower map, while the normal world is above us. The whole game is like this from this point forward, and it's really cool to just fly around these two versions of the worlds and see all the differences between them. As we make our way through this area while crouching, we hear a bunch of trash and metal moving. But similar to Chica's room, nothing is actually happening visually. This aerial shot as I'm moving my character through the environment shows that nothing actually transpires. In both the AR world and the real world, it looks like we can find floating, wet floor bots above the bathrooms that actually contain the ones we can access shortly. At first, I wasn't sure why these guys were up here, but that's when I realized later on this upper part of the map will load in after we've cleared the nodes. But let's move on. We need to get ambushed by a staff bot. So the second we exit this little alcove, a staff bot will immediately grab us. Ignore the weird floating barrels, I'll talk about those in a second. So the bunny-eared robot just pops out with his hands stretched outwards ready to grab us. We can see that the vanity mask just spawns on the ground beneath where we are standing. A moment later, the staff bot moves a bit, and the vanity mask instantly warps into the robot's hand as he presents it to us. So we grab it and just put it on. We are unable to leave this cutscene no matter what we do, so we have no choice but to plop it onto our face. Just remember kids, if a stranger tells you to put on a robotic mask, say no, and tell an adult or something. Also, don't climb into destroyed, abandoned buildings where kids go missing. Red flags everywhere. So the second we put on the mask, we get warped down below to the augmented reality version of the map. Our position changes instantly the moment the mask animation fully blocks our screen. It's a really neat trick. Oh yeah, and those floating barrels. They're a possible oversight by the developers. So in the virtual world, lots of objects float around, but for some reason, these barrels have that same effect applied to them. I'm assuming it isn't intentional, because they're clipping through the ground and stuff, but if you want to go deep dive game theory on this, you could say the barrels are bleeding over to our world from the virtual one. Our worlds are converging, and there is nothing you can do about it. But hey, that's just some floating barrels. Moving on, after navigating through some trash, we come across an area where Monty runs across our screen. We can't really see him too well, and he vanishes very quickly. So let's change that. So now we can see that Monty just spawns basically inside the wall, and he runs through this tree stump object. As we follow this ankle biter out of the tree, we can see he actually passes through the ladder before he even knocks it over. Truly, Monty is one slick half-a-gator. Our lad marches up the boxes, and something interesting happens as he crosses over the paint. So this paint is known as a decal in Unreal Engine, which are materials that are projected onto your meshes/models. And because Monty is passing through it, the paint is then projected onto Monty for a moment. But only for a moment, because this boy gets Thanos snapped a second later. So a lot of areas in Monty Golf are unloaded until key events happen or the player reaches certain destinations. So it's a bit hard to talk about out-of-bounds stuff because a lot of the things will fill in shortly. But now that we've talked about decals, let's show off another one. Because a T-posing Monty out of bounds can be coupled with other objects, including a paint-splattered metal railing. And so Monty gets covered in pink paint, including his mohawk. Glorious. Next up, we have the Monty Golf arcade machine, and I'm going to be honest, there isn't much hidden off camera here. I tried spawning in our character onto the map too, but it was giving me trouble. However, we can take a look at all the courses, so you can see them without all the darkness. So course 1 has some giant mounds of trash and some square-looking water. Underneath the water, there are tons of pipes that we normally can't see very well. In course 2, this is what the whole map looks like. I would have loved to try to walk up this spiral staircase as Cassie if given the chance. I feel like you can appreciate more of this level from up here. Now, course 3 does have some hidden objects, and this is a zoom out of this desert map themed after Roxy Raceway. For starters, we have these black wedge-shaped objects floating above the stage. I think they're leftover ramps, perhaps? We can also fly down the tunnel, which is kinda cool. There's a giant virtual reality cart flying overhead, and way to the right, we can find an untextured billboard sign. I wonder what used to be on it. Hole 4 takes place in a swamp environment with 2 giant alligator heads. This map is basically just a river surrounded by tons of trees, and there isn't much to see. Hole 5 throws a giant cupcake into the mix within this rectangle environment. There's a chandelier above us and piles of trash all around. Out back, we have 2 blue container buildings across the purple poisonous looking water. Course 6 takes us to a pizza paradise. There's giant pizzas, pizza advertisements, and even pizza boxes. Unfortunately, the pizza boxes are empty, but they do have grease stains, which are a nice touch. Level 7 has a lush canyon with a severed roller coaster track running through it. The roller coaster doesn't go anywhere, as both ends abruptly stop. Course 8 is all within the Vanny world, and there isn't a whole lot to see in this purple landscape. There are some large machines outside the tunnel we play in though, and you can't go wrong with Digital Pizza Man. The last course is like the Daycare, and is a ball pit extravaganza. The ball pit itself is just textured hills that look like balls. There's slides all around the level as well. Also, I hate this course. I fell out of bounds like a bajillion times. But that wraps up Monty Golf. So real quick, I did want to mention something about the mask. The mask doesn't 100% teleport you to the other map accurately all the time. Sometimes the map section below is slightly displaced, but in reality, every time you put on the mask, the game warps you a set distance. So if you were out of bounds or flying around by cheating, the mask will make you move down and up whatever that distance amount is. Also, trying to access the stage where Monty died in Security Breach doesn't work because we just fall through it and die. So we make our way to the node area, and because we lack the tool, even despite this normally being an impossible situation, we can't access the nodes. So I have to restart and get that Faz wrench. Now when the Cyber Bunny attacks, the animation that shows up on screen is just a video file playing on loop, or at least from what I can tell, as it's considered a heads-up display element and doesn't have any dimension. The bunny's animation is simply teleporting though, and watching this in slow motion doesn't really show much, other than the cube spawning slowly and the rabbit warping. So, VR Monty is summoned once the security rabbit has caught you, but up top, regular Monty isn't actually above you. He only exists in one of the 2 spaces in this instance. If we linger too long, we'll get jump scared in the real world, and this is what the animation looks like in slow motion. Monty chomps at our face, and the animation then freezes in place on the final frame. Now in leaving this area, Monty jumps out and knocks down a ramp for us that lets us go up top. But where does Monty come from? Well, Croc Boy just spawns in clipping through these pieces of wood. He then shoots out into the hallway like this. As he lunges forward, the ramp collapses on him and it eventually pushes him through the ground. He'll sit there for just a moment before unloading completely, and this is the last frame of his animation. Moving on, as we make our way to the security office, there is a set of vents that has a Monty doll in it. This vent system is used in the base game after defeating Monty, but here we can't access it. Even if we could, there is an invisible wall preventing us from getting inside. But if we did, we are able to walk around just fine. The vents lead back behind the stage and then just abruptly end. But we can see the section that connects over by the stage too. So now we have Monty banging on this door in the hallway. On my second playthrough, he only hit the door a few times. But on my first playthrough, he hit it over and over again. If we go behind the door, we'll see he's not there, as there's no point in animating him. The door just flexes like it's being hit repeatedly from behind. Kinda strange that someone boarded this door up after the earthquake happened. In case you were curious, the last two doors in this hallway have nothing behind them, and they just lead to nowhere. In the security office area in FNAF Ruin, Monty will be seen trying to squeeze through a door. If we walk up to him, we're gonna get jump scared. But we can see how he appears off camera. He just spawns into place, and watching his animation in slow motion is pretty neat. If we backtrack at all, we will die, even if we try to just instantly warp behind him. It's kinda cool that Crocman's got a sixth sense. After this, we make our way through the warehouse area and then enter the anomaly room. This is where we make the TV vanish. We can walk on top of the ceiling here, and by doing so, we skip the loading zone for the rest of the map. So behind the TV is nothing. Redoing this though, we can just phase through the wall, and now Daycare will be there. But with that, we've entered Chapter 2. I hope you enjoyed this very extensive breakdown, and if you did, subscribe for more FNAF Ruin content coming shortly. Cheers!